Yo, what's popping? I'm here reviewing 3 games. So, like this video if you like it, subscribe for more daily Overwatch League content, and share this video for anyone who is not sure what happened and wants to know what happened in these games. Maybe they missed them and they don't want to go back and watch them. They want to get the idea. Go ahead and watch this. So, comment down below your thoughts. Maybe you disagree or you do agree or whatever. We're going right into it. So, Houston. 4-2 coming into this with a +5 map differential, their first game of the stage. Washington coming in 4-3 +2 map differential after playing what was supposed to be Overwatch against New York Excelsior. And they do look better than they did, but I don't love it. So, ends up being a 3-2 victory for Houston. Oasis is a 2-0 victory for Houston, just domination. Well, not domination, but pretty much. So, they come out with Merritt, Pelican, Dante, Lastro, Iris. Washington play Assassin, Decay, Mag, Krillin, Opener. I really, really want Washington to stop benching Happy for any reason. There's zero reason to bench Happy. He's literally been your best player all season. Just don't bench him. City Center's 100-71 for Houston. Houston playing Ash Tracer, Doom, Zen, Ana, with Washington playing Ash Tracer, Ball, Zen, Bap. So we get the Ball and the Bap versus Doom and the Ana. Overall, both these tanks did oxygen in this map, just oxygen. And yeah, Dante kind of struggled to get good dives in on the Zen Bap. Mag kind of was lost, not really pressuring the backline either. And I don't know. Merritt was doing a lot, and that was a big thing. Pelican was doing some work. Both backlines were doing a lot, but the tanks were just not doing it. There was a really weird time where Assassin, who's on Ashe, by the way, for some reason, let's take out Happy and put Assassin on Ashe for some god-forsaken reason. Where Washington were down 3 and Assassin decided to bobble 8 and then swap to Sombra. So I guess you wanted him on Sombra the whole time, but like, I don't know. I don't know, but very weird. Just their DPS kind of fragging out. Houston were a bit better because I think Dante was doing a little bit more than Mag. I said they're both tanks are doing air, but Dante was at least applying some pressure to the backline, even if he was dying, and he was kind of making space for Merritt mostly. So sure, and whenever they swap to the Sombra, Washington swap to the Sombra, right? It's just not the one. Their synergy's not there, and they continue to do it. University's 184 for Houston. Houston doesn't change their comp. Washington doesn't change their comp. They leave it on the Sombra. Starting off, Washington looked good. Dante gets hacked, he dies, and Decay does a lot of work, so good for him. Pelican decides to swap over to Genji. And Washington try to back out after Assassin dies early, but Houston chased them and they stagger them down, so they don't get any percentage and lose the point, so not great. But yeah, it's kind of back and forth. Dante dies, Mag will die. Mag pretty lost a lot of the time here. I'm just not impressed. The synergy between Washington's dive is just not there. It's just the tale as old as time. The dive is not synced for Washington. Assassin will EMP. The EMP goes off. Nothing happens. There's no mag slam. There's no anything. And I feel like especially now with EMP, how little time you have to actually do things with it, you almost want your ball to slam and then you EMP them. Or you want the EMP to go off as the ball slams or something. But there's just nothing. Both tanks still not doing a lot, but Dante is still doing a little bit more because Mag is just not it. It's very nice to see Houston in the double flex support though, because Lastro is popping off. And so is Eurus. They're both doing good. But really, yeah, Washington 84, but it's not great. It's not a great 84. It's like a we have the K 84, you know? Like he'll get you 84, but you're gonna have to get the rest. Now Eichenwald ends up being a 2-1 victory for Washington, and Washington had me fooled a little bit. I thought they were a real team for just a moment. I believe they were an actual Overwatch League team, but it was not true afterwards. But anyway, for this time they are real. Piggy comes in for Dante, Happy comes in for Assassin, Kalios comes in for Mag. I do like the Kalios look a lot more than Mag, and I'll explain why in a moment. So, Houston playing Hanzo, Tracer, Sigma, Zen, Bap on their offense. Washington playing Sojourn, Ashe, Sigma, Zen, Bap on their defense. However, that Ashe quickly turns into a Tracer because Merritt just Sonic Arrows Decay and kills him. So because of that, Houston kind of just take control of the point, and Washington come back, but Kalios dies, so Washington kind of win the fight, not really, but because Krillin kills like a ton, and like there's like hardly anyone left on the field, but Washington do die and don't really stop any push, so it's just kind of like fake kills. But Krillin did kill a ton, so shout out to Krillin. Kalios eats a pulse bomb, which is nice, but yeah, that's not the big thing here. The big thing is Happy is sitting on that close high ground because there's a big castle high ground and there's that high ground that's above like the pathway to first. And Happy is just sitting on that and he is unkillable. He is finding picks left and right, and you have Krillin sitting up on the castle pumping out damage. So if you do dive Happy, which they don't do because they can't because they don't have a dive guy, but if you were to, then you still have to worry about Krillin doing damage on the other high ground. And if you go up to Krillin, which does happen sometimes, the Tracer would try to go to Krillin. He'd die to Happy, and just it's impossible to take Happy off that high ground. The only way they can do it is off of like a flux or a window or something, but it just doesn't happen. So Washington have a really strong hold there and hold for a pretty long amount of time. Happy ended up being 10-0 in the end. I don't know if those are final blows. I couldn't tell you, but I wouldn't be surprised he was doing that much. Houston has some pretty sloppy ult usage. It's a time where they use 4 ults and get nothing, and Washington use like 1 and they win. And Washington were actually using their ults pretty well, but mostly was coming off of the crossfire between Happy and Krillin. And I don't know how you break it on Sigma. I think you have to go dive and force him off it somehow. There just needs to be someone to pressure Happy somehow. I don't know if you need a Genji to do it. I don't know if you want an Echo to do it. I don't know what you need to do it, but there it needs to be something, and it can't be Tracer. Now moving on to Washington's offense. Pretty easy. Piggy dies early, so Washington just cap A. And then Houston take the high ground, but it doesn't really matter. Going both ways. There's a lot of ults going on, stuff happening, but Decay lives. Decay's alive. Probably have a chance to lose the fight, and then they do lose the fight because Decay's alive. And Washington get their guys back in the cap pretty easily. But yeah, comparing the Sojourn to the Hanzo, I think Sojourn is a bit better overall because the angles you can take with Sojourn are much more aggressive, and that you can use them to find your picks much easier. Hanzo, you're kind of relying on the enemy to maybe walk into it, not into it, but like walk into your LOS. Whereas Sojourn, you can move around and enter their LOS and then fire them, especially with how fast you can shoot. Because you have your charge up and you can shoot pretty much instantly. Hanzo, even if he gets into a position, he still has to charge up his bow, and that's a huge difference between the two. And it makes Sojourn much more effective, in my opinion. Now, if there were better sightlines for Hanzo, then sure. Like when Happy was going crazy on the off angle, he didn't have to be on Sojourn for that. He could have been on Hanzo, I think, because he wasn't really moving around that much. He wasn't really diving that much. Like he was, but it wasn't what was winning it. So maybe in those situations that the Hanzo would be okay. But when you're on an offense and you need to find angles onto the Sojourn, an enemy Sojourn can find a pick much easier onto Happy than a Hanzo can, just because Hanzo can't walk into the LOS as easily. And I think it's pretty like people might say, oh, it's not really relevant. It's actually like pretty relevant, I think. So we get to Dorado. It's being a 2-1 for Houston. No substitutions. And on Houston's offense, we see Houston play Widow, Tracer, Sigma, Zen, Bap, but we see Washington play Sojourn, Tracer, Ball, Zen, Bap. And that's not notable, but what is notable is that Kalios is the player on the ball, not Mag. So we see Kalios on ball for some reason. Pretty interesting. And it looks good on the offense because they're sitting there, they're all around the high grounds on Dorado. The guys are walking up, they drop down on them, they die. Until Kalios goes a little too deep to try and kill Lastro. And he does kill Lastro, but he dies. That's not a big deal because they took a minute and a half off the clock on a close hold. That's good. But they never really recover, especially on the ball character. Because Kalios is just MIA for the rest of the second point. He's just not there. He's getting poked out and not really finding any pile drives anywhere. And Houston get to move the cart for free all the way through, basically. There is like a fight at the end, and they do win it, but it doesn't. But they don't win it. You know what I mean? They win it, but kind of not really, because Houston kind of kite, and then they get their guys back, and then they make it through, and basically just have to win one fight to make it. and that's awful. And the Kalios ball just doesn't do it. But Krillin's doing well, and Happy's doing well, but that's the extent of it, really. A Tracer can't be expected to do too much. Like, he's distracting, he's either marking the other Tracer, or he's being marked by the Tracer, or he's on the Widow, or he's doing whatever. But without a ball, it's pretty hard, because you can't engage on the supports. The supports are chilling with the Sigma. You can't just, like, it's very hard to one-clip a Zen Bap with a Sigma beside them on the cart. Like, oh, you can one-clip Zen, but it's not like he's sitting there with a Lucio. It's not like he's sitting in Nom. He has people with him. Onto the third point, Kalios does make the swap on the Sigma, but they still give Houston the free push for the most part. Houston are stopped at the very end, but they basically get it to the very end off of winning not even really a fight. They don't even really win a fight. They just get to the end. Well, they do win a fight because Happy comes in and saves and like picks 2 and wins. So I guess they win that fight. But other than that, to get to the very end, they don't really have to do much. Kalios just sitting on the high ground. He's just poking, and no one's really there to contest. It's quite sad. I don't know who you need there. I don't know if you're expecting Decay to sit on the cart, but Decay's not really a cart, an objective heavy tracer, right? More of a fragger. And you're certainly not expecting Happy to be on the cart or anyone like that. So I don't know what the goal was, but Happy does clutch out and gives them a shot to win the map, or to at least complete, or at least a chance to win it in their offense. But they can't do it because Washington's offense, they roll out with Widow Tracer Ball Zen Bap into a Widow Tracer Sigma Zen Bap. So we have the difference of a Sigma or a ball. What do you think wins on the offense? Well, you think, oh, the ball can find some good dives. They can get some good pile drives off for the Widow or the Tracer. But it just doesn't work. Because Krillin's not that guy on Wrecking Ball. He's just not. Krillin gets a pick on Pelican right away because he's popping off, and Krillin's playing very well. And Houston kite back, and they give to the choke, and they come back. But after that, Washington get nothing. They're basically just waiting for Happy or Decay to frag out because the ball pick is not finding any angles. It's not really working. I don't know. It's just not there. The dive is not there. You're relying too much on Happy to get picks into an enemy Widowmaker. But even whenever he gets a pick, there's just nothing. Like, the ball follow-up isn't there. The ball tracer dive is not there to follow up. So unless you're expecting Happy to kill 5, or for Krillin to get a random pick, which is very hard on this map against the Sigma based on the positioning, Krillin basically can only do things once things are done. It's very difficult. There is one time where they get a decent dive, but the K ends up dying, and the Houston backline lives. And anytime Decay tries to do anything, because he doesn't have the help of his ball, he just gets collapsed on, and it's very easy. So, yeah, Washington gameplay standard Washington gameplay where they try and win with their DPS fragging. So Coliseum 2-1 for Houston. Dante comes in for Pelican on damage. You'll notice Dante is on damage. So why are they not running Pelican? He was Rookie of the Year. He is their best player. Maybe he is popping off. I don't know, because Dante doesn't really get the job done either. So Dante and Segai to Decay, just giving you his thing. But for the first 2 minutes, because they add 2 minutes, basically those first 2 minutes, nothing's done. They're just sitting there in the middle of the hallway. Both teams are fighting back and forth. Their people are dying, but nothing's happening. Washington finally do win some fight and push a big 34 minutes, which is just outside of the Coliseum. And then Decay hits a huge flank. Decay consistently hits big flanks on this entire map. They're frequent, they're effective, and he's on the Ashe. They're playing Ashe Sojourn. So the double hit scan into Houston playing Hanzo Tracer, and then both teams playing Sigma Zen Bat. But the Tracer can do basically nothing in here. What are you asking your Tracer to do? Because you can get one tap by Sojourn, you can get one tap by Ashe, you can get one tap by Zen, and Bat has an immortality fuel that can live and can kill you. It's not easy to kill a Bat. So there's 4 guys that Dante can get one tap by, plus a Sigma who can rock him. What is he expected to do here? What's his goal? Because there's no ball to dive. There's no assistance for him. He's just being annoying. He can't do much. So as much as I say Dante didn't do anything, he was not put into a place to succeed. It's very difficult. And then you have the Hanzo into the Sojourn and the Ashe. Sojourn can find the picks much easier than the Hanzo can. Ashe does a consistent damage with dynamites. And then you have your Zens and your Baps, right? So I think Houston, they win this map. No, they don't. They don't win this map. It says 2-1 Houston. They don't win this map. I don't know what the score was. That was a lie. I was looking, I was like, what? No. So I think Houston had a massive compositional differential. I don't like this read of the Hanzo Tracer. I don't like Dante being in because I think Pelican's better on both Hanzo and Tracer. Just put him in some way. I don't know which, like, and then you have options because Dante very much your Tracer and very much your Sombra. Those are his dudes. Neither of those guys get much done here. I would have much rather seeing like a double sniper back, or maybe you bring in a ball, or you do something. I don't know. Don't like it. Don't rate it. Both teams waiting for the DPS to get picks. Washington have more pick potential. Just how it wins. Lee Zhong's ends up being a 2-0 for Houston because Pelican comes in for Dante, then Dante goes to tank. Assassin comes in for Happy, and Mag comes in for Kelly. So you're back to the the Assassin Mag like roster that did nothing, and they did not do a lot, right? So Control Center is 100 to 99 for Houston, very close to be fair. And to be honest, I don't know how Houston managed to cap this one out in the end, because it looked like Washington were going to win this. To be honest. I don't know though. Houston were looking dominant. Like they really were. They were like at 99 to 100 at some point or something. Mag was punching Iris off the map, but Merritt was just responding and things like that. And Houston were looking great. Assassin on the Sombra was not doing it for me. The same thing as before. Even though Mag's on the Doom down to the ball, which probably was a little bit better because he was actually getting picks on the backline and stuff. It didn't really happen. And the only reason they really flipped the point is because Houston kind of let them. They said, okay, we have ults, we'll come back and we'll use our ults. Except they came back, they used the ults, and they didn't win. So then they're like, oh, that's not great. But then Dante kind of diffs Mag on the Doomfist, punches it into his team, and he dies. Pelican hits a blade and doesn't get anything, though. And then it's a very scrappy overtime fight. Ults on every side. But the deciding factor was Merritt, really. He gets a Bob. He goes kind of hard. Gets some big shots, and the Bob is just dishing out damage. And that's basically how they win that overtime. And then Night Market's 120 for Houston. Houston play Ash, Tracer, Dooms, and Ana. Washington play Sombra, Tracer, Dooms, and Brig. So back to the Sombra, Tracer, Doom. Washington get the first cap, which has been kind of like they got like most of the first caps, most of these Koth maps, but it doesn't really get anything because Houston comes back with a nano boost. They nano Lastro, and he gets like 5 or well, not 5. He gets like 3 or 2 or 4 or something. Washington wipe, and then from there on out, it's just Houston City. Dante is doing the most. Assassin has EMP, but he never gets to dive off. It's super scrappy, but Dante ends up living, and he and Mag ends up not living, and then Dante just does more work. And Washington are sent packing in 5 maps earlier. So, overview. Washington looked a bit better than they did against New York, but Kelly's on ball is just not the play. He's just not that guy. The summer ball was awful. No synergy between them. I hope I never see it again from Washington. The Sigma comp looked good, but it was mostly off of just Happy being that guy, right? And it's still very passive, and I don't know, they kind of won off of, I think, Houston compositional errors, or Houston not, it wasn't about them being good, it was about Houston not adapting to what they were doing. Which will work against some teams, but it doesn't make them a good team. Houston looked alright. I did like their adaptation to Doomcom. Normally they were like balls to the wall where going in, but this time Dante had to play a bit more passive because his Zenyatta does make it much more punishing to dive in like that. And he got better as it went on. The Sigma comp for Houston was good for the most part, but I do think their composition's a little out of whack. I don't like the Merritt Hanzo that much, especially compared to Sojourn. I think they should probably work on me turning him off that, or maybe playing the Ash instead. I understand the Hanzo, but at the same time, I don't like only playing Hanzo. I'm okay with it as an option, not as your main option. My player of the match is going to go to Lastro. I think seeing him on Zenyatta made me very happy compared to seeing him on Lucio. I like seeing him get nanoed. He had big tranks, he had solid gameplay, and just not on Lucio makes him much better. Maybe it could have went to Merritt, maybe it could have went to Dante. I don't know. They both had some off spots. Lastro was pretty consistently good. I didn't talk about him that much, but it's hard to. So much happening. So, yeah. That was a long-ass review. My bad, boy. Okay, big 20-minute Washington review. I hate that. So Paris Eternal egg the LA Gladiators. So Paris 06 minus 14 going into this Gladiators 5-2 plus 10 after beating the Vancouver Titans. They end up winning 3-1. So Paris do get a map here, and it was very interesting seeing Paris play this. Oasis was a 2-0 for the Gladiators, but it wasn't like a dominant 2-0. Like there was some fight back from Paris. So Paris playing Dove, Wub, Don, Drijo, Khan. That's basically all they can. All they can invest, all they can come in. But Gladiators playing Kevster, Ons, Reiner, Shu, Skewed. So we see Ons come in. That's nice to see. City Center is a Paris playing Tracer, Sombra, Ball, Brig, Zen. Gladiators playing Hanzo, Widow, Doom on a Zen. I don't know if this Widow was an Ashe or not. I feel like this was an Ashe. Might be mistaken. But Paris kind of rolls off immediately because Dawn hits a good engage on Ball and the Tracer Sombra clean up. So then right away, Gladiators lose the fight. And I'm like, whoa, okay, Paris, go crazy. And Gladiators lose the next fight too because Paris had another big dive. It looks sick. The dive looks good. But once Gladiators get control of the point, which took a while to do, Paris got 82%. But once they got control of the point, it was very difficult for Paris to dive onto the high ground and dislodge the LA backline at all. And they just can't do it. They just can't get the job done. The Doomfist is able to go harder. And Gladiators, their peel isn't there because on a Zen, very greedy backline because you're playing off nades and discords, and they're both very powerful. Whereas Paris are playing off of the Zen and the Brig, so they're like living better. But it's hard to get to the Gladiators backline. It doesn't really matter that you don't have the Brig. And that's what I found. Paris lost a fight using 4 ults, and that's when you kind of realize like this is not going to work out maybe. So University is 190 for the Gladiators. Another decently close round, right? Paris playing Tracer, Sojourn, Doom, Bab, Zen. Glad's playing Tracer, Ashe, Doom on a Zen. Paris had some fight, and they were pressuring the backline very hard. But she was hitting some massive nades, like often. Dove was playing well. But I don't know. Paris, there's some big moments from Paris, but it didn't feel like they were ever really in control. They were just diving the Glad's backline, and if they can't kill them fast enough, or if the Glad's backline kills their backline faster, they just lose. And they weren't getting it. They weren't quite getting it. Even though Skewed had some moments where he just kind of died often, and Dove looked good, and Wob was looking good. Gladiators just look better. They're the better team, right? They're just a better team. Midtown's a 2-1 for the Gladiators. Vastola comes in for Dawn. Patafon comes in for Ons. So nothing crazy. Paris on their offense, they play Tracer, Hanzo, Sigma, Bab, Zen. Gladiators play Tracer, Sojourn, Doom, on Zen. And Paris are basically winning off of Wub picking guys before the fight. He does it on first, he does it on second, and that's basically every time they win. Like, Paris get through first with like 5 minutes. Huge. And then they get stopped at the end of second. And like Wub's looking really good because he's using his dragons to force Gladiators out of position that they want, like off the high ground or whatever. And the Paris Eternal are doing a great job putting Wub in a position to succeed. But if he hits something on the Hanzo, because he's on Hanzo, right? Dove, it's up to Dove to dive in and basically finish them off. But that is easier said than done because you're playing with the Ana, so there's some nade there. There's some good solo target burst healing. You're playing against the Zen, so there's a Discord, and then there's also a Sojourn and a Tracer can mark you. So while it's a good, and maybe it works at a higher level, Dove is not like he's not like a Kevster. Like he's not that guy, right? He's good. He was doing good. Don't get me wrong. But he was struggling to fill the kills. He couldn't finish the kills that Wub was getting the body shots on. And that's not his fault, I don't think. But I don't know. It's like the game plan was good, but they just don't quite have the ability to execute it. They needed a little something else. I don't know if they needed a dive instead of a Sigma. I don't know what they needed exactly, but that's how it happened. Gladiators offense, they kind of roll through an A. They just kind of roll. Kevster goes crazy. And then they do a decent job stopping them on B, but Kevster still goes crazy. Reiner actually does quite a bit because Reiner, every time he goes in, there's a Sigma there to rock him. There's a Zen meta discord him, and he kind of dies. The only time he doesn't die is whenever he gets nanoed. But then even if he gets nanoed, sometimes there's a window to stop it. But if there isn't a window to stop it, like there wasn't on the last fight, he goes in, he nanos, Shu gets a big nade off of it because Reiner's disrupt them all. Kevster can come in and clean the most, and Gladiators cap it out. That's how they win. So very much like a Nano Winston into this for the Doomfist, but I don't know. It's hard to say. It's like it feels like that, but Paris genuinely did a good job stopping like Gladiators. Like they needed to use their ults. They needed to execute it like that, or else they weren't going to win. But yeah, pretty alright from Paris. You'd like to see it. And a Circuit Royale is a 3-2 victory for Paris. This was actually a very, very good map for Paris. Very interesting. Ons comes in for Patafon on the Widow. You'll notice Space does not come in for Reiner. we'll see what that's about. But Rhino doesn't look great. So Gladiator's offense, Kessler comes out on the Pharah. They're playing Pharah Mercy, and he goes over the top of the building right away. And it forces Paris to back up around the bend because there's a Pharah right above them. The snipers can't really hit the Pharah directly above them. It's very difficult. And so they're forced to back up. And this gives Gladiators a bunch of free push, basically, which is very good. Of course, they die because they're Pharah playing the double sniper, but it gets the job done. It's very creative, and I enjoyed that a lot. I think it's a pretty good strategy. It's a little cheese. It's a little troll, but it works, right? And then he swaps over to the, I don't know what it was, Sojourn, of course, because why not? And then Skewed swaps over to the Zen, so it's maximum poke, basically. The only difference being Paris on a Hanzo compared to Gladiators on the Sojourn. And it's pretty close, right? But Paris get the stronghold, kind of, because Gladiators, yeah, they get into B with 435 because why not? Wub swaps over to Genji, and Paris are winning at the top of the hill, basically. And Gladiators will get that eventually, right? But on C, Paris like hold them strong because they play so aggressively. They're playing right up to the choke, basically spawn camping at this point, and they're not letting them walk into the final theater thing at all. I don't know what the final point is called. They don't let them walk into C at all. And eventually they do get past it because Paris has to back up for resources, for healing or whatever, and there's like a flexes going on and stuff like that. But Paris hold out on the final corner of C because Vestola gets a lot of damage on the Sigma, and he does look better than Reiner on the Sigma. Vestola looks like he knows what he's doing. Reiner, he has the idea. It's not quite there. It's not fully there. But the aggression from Paris is unexpected because even on B, they were kind of holding like further up the hill than most people would, and it was looking very good, and it was exciting, and it was like Paris actually had a playstyle that they were kind of not conforming to, but they were like they had an idea and they had like an identity there for a moment. Like they are an aggressive team that has some good synergy, and it was looking good. And considering Dove was only there for a few scrims, probably fantastic. So Paris's offense, they play the Widow Hanzo, Sigma Brig Zen. Gladiators playing the Sojourn instead of the Hanzo. But Paris basically roll this. They enter B with 505, they enter C with 530, and I think Gladiators won a fight, but like it's just roll on roll. Like Paris are just so aggressive. They are taking so much space so fast, and it's like almost like Kevser couldn't even charge the Sojourn like railgun. Like there was that much like pressure on them that like I don't know. It was crazy. And maybe I don't even know. I don't know how to explain it. They just rolled in. Wub was going pretty hard on the Hanzo. He ends up dying to stuff. Skewed is forced to trank in awkward situations. Ons was very quiet, and Dove was definitely outclassing him on the Widow. And yeah, that's the biggest part. I don't know. Paris just actually rolled through them. Something. I guess I don't know. Anyway, new Queen Street. The whole dream's over. Gladiators won 125 to 46. Potiphar comes back in for Ons. And Gladiators just show a really good understanding of push here overall. They made it very difficult for Paris to get any meaningful distance, especially when they had the close spawns, because they get the checkpoint and they don't like let go of it very easily. It was like whenever you're stalling on Koth for percentage, it was like that, but on an entire push round, basically. There was a time where Judro saw the Mercy, which I thought was really weird, because he was like pocketing a Sojourn. I don't know the goal there. Didn't really work. And it was I don't know. It was a pretty good. It was just like a diff. It was just a diff. It was what I kind of expected this entire thing to be. This is probably the least close map, and Gladiators were not too happy that they lost. I guess I don't know. But yeah, quickly turns into a steamroll. That's that really. So overall, Paris made this match much closer than I expected. Well played very well. Dove was holding his own. He even diffed Ons, I would say, on Circuit Royale. Maybe he didn't quite live up to Glister, but like I don't think anyone was expecting that anyway, so it's whatever. And perhaps a surprising thing was that on the ball comps actually looked quite good. There was real synergy between Dawn and Wub, and they're probably one of the teams that made the Sombra comp look the most cohesive. They weren't the best at it, but the Sombra, you could see why the Sombra was being played more than maybe some of the other teams. and they showed they actually have like a game plan and like play style. Like they had a cohesive team, like a look, and that's something that we haven't been able to say for Paris very much in this season. But it's similar to Vancouver was, as in if you watch this game, you wouldn't expect them to be 0-6. You'd expect them to have a better record than that. But it's also the same thing as you're not really worried if you're a Gladiators fan because you're still very much in control of this match overall. And except for having Reiner in on Circuit Rail instead of Space, which is a little bit of a concern, and maybe Skewed making some interesting decisions, you don't really have anything to be worried about. And the problem, and Skewed might not even be an issue because they're playing on Zen. Like he's gonna die. He's gonna be put in awkward positions because their backline is very diveable, very killable, and that just might be the style they want. So we'll see. My player of the match is going to Kevster. It's Kevster, bro. He was doing what he had to do. It was just you're not getting better than Kevster. It's just not happening. I've never looked bad at all in this series, 0 times. So final match of the day, Dallas Fuel against the Atlanta Reign. Dallas 5-2 with +7 against the Atlanta Reign 4-3 +2. It's a 3-0 for Atlanta Reign, which I did predict. So shout out to me predicting the Atlanta Reign to get a 3-0 here, but it was a pretty decisive 3-0. The first map was a little close, but other than that, pretty clean. So Ilios 2-1 for Atlanta. Dallas playing Edison, Sparkle, Hanbin, Fielder, Chio. Atlanta playing Kai, Venom, Hawk, UV, and OG. Lighthouse is 100-99 for Dallas. Dallas do win this one. And I was like, okay, but it was very close. So Dallas playing Tracer, Echo, Ball, Zen, Ana. So we see Hanbin on Ball, which is interesting. And Atlanta's playing Sojourn, Tracer, Doom, Ana, Lucio. I do think the Ball was very interesting, specifically because this is the map we've seen teams opt to run D.Va on. This is like D.Va's actual map where you can argue D.Va has a niche over Ball. So I'm very surprised to see Hanbin play the Ball here instead of the D.Va. They do win, so maybe you can say, oh, well, he made the right pick. Still have to say. But Kai was doing so much. Dallas had to commit so much to stop him from killing everyone. When they did, they committed so much, but it was enough to take the round because maybe Venom was doing a lot, but he wasn't really as much as a threat as he would be in the next 2 rounds specifically. There's a time in overtime, 99-99. Atlanta look like they're winning, but Hanbin is living in like a 3v1, and he's just living. And then his supports come in, he gets nanoed, and then that goes away, and then he gets strengthed, and then Kai dies, and then Dallas take the round. It's very, very close, like very close. Like a few seconds earlier, if Hanbin gets a little bit lower or dies, it's just an Atlanta win. So Hanbin, very good on that stall. Overall, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know, because I don't think he was really preventing Kai. It wasn't so much him, it was so much maybe Sparkle, the Echo. Because there was times where Kai was literally killing 5. Or there were times where they would dive Kai, but he'd still get a pick on like Fielder, and then he'd just slide across the map and kill Chio. And then he'd kill everyone else. Like Kai was that guy. Very close, and it did not look sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable because Well was 100-84 for Atlanta, and this is the map where Venom will always carry. I've never seen Venom have a bad Well ever. He does so well. And then you also have Kai going crazy on Sojourn. It was crazy. Dallas played the same thing. Atlanta played the same thing. Hawk played very well. The Atlanta dive was very good on the backline often. Very clean. But this was really the round of Venom. It always is the round of Venom. That's just how it goes. Ruins 199 for Atlanta. This was an even more round of Venom somehow. So Dallas playing Widow, Tracer, and Doom, Zen, Bap. Atlanta playing Sojourn, Tracer, Doom, Zen, Bap. So both teams on the Doom this time. But yeah, I don't know. This was actually very close as well. The biggest decider here were definitely the DPS though. There were times where maybe Atlanta would do a dive, and then Sparkle would come in, he'd clutch up, and he'd kill 3. Or there were times where maybe Dallas would kill a lot, but then Venom and Kai would refrag it, and they would be very good as well. Yeah, I don't know. But Atlanta's DPS do come out on top, because in the very end, it's like a 1v3 in overtime. And it's similar to Hanbin, where he lives long enough for his team to get back and win, except he lives long enough for a team to get back and win, and then also kills them himself. Like, he basically stalls out a 1v5. His team comes back. He lives. He comes back with a HP, kills the back line, gets a pulse bomb, and he looks crazy. Edison looked very good on this map on the Widow, but Hawk was much better than Honda on the Doom. I think he just showed a more mastery of the hero and just had a better idea of what his dives were and what he was doing, his limits, you would say. And Sparkle played very well, won them multiple fights, but Venom played much better. Venom definitely solidifying himself as one of the best tracers, especially after this match where he's in the entire time. Like, he does not get subbed out. Huge gameplay from Venom. So, Midtown's a 3-0 for Atlanta. Dallas not making any substitutions, neither does Atlanta. On Atlanta's offense, Dallas plays Sojourn, Tracer, Sigma, Zen, Bap, whereas Atlanta plays Sojourn, Tracer, Doom, Bap, Brig. And they kind of just win. Kai gets one taps them, and then Atlanta go a little too fast and get a little too ambitious, you could say, and they do die. But they that's just Atlanta. But then they come back and they win the next fight pretty easily and have 455 going into B. And then Honbin makes a very huge error. So he's on the Sigma and he drops off the high ground to contest the part. But as soon as he drops to the cart, Atlanta just dive onto the back line and kill them. And then just keep rolling. There's just more momentum. Because, yeah, you're stopping the cart, but now your back line is just free. Your back line is just free. Yeah, I don't know. And Atlanta do end up losing a fight on B, but Dallas have to expend a good amount of ults, and Atlanta just come back. They use a window. Dallas is off the high ground. Hawk gets a good dive off. Kai gets like 3, gets 2 or 3, and then Atlanta have 345 entering C, and Edison swaps over to Widow at this point. But Atlanta just win. Hawk swaps over to Sigma at a point, I believe, but they get the ults and they end up capping out the map at 57. And capping the map on Midtown is very strong. I don't know compared to last stage if it's as strong, but yeah, Atlanta just know what they're doing better. Dallas is unable to poke out Atlanta enough to stop the dive from coming through at all. And even if they do stop it, or like the dive comes out and it's not a great dive, your biggest threat on Atlanta is actually Kai, not in the dive. So, and your only way to contest Kai is from Edison on the Sojourn or the Widow, unless Sparkle is on the Tracer, but Sparkle normally can't get all the way over there, can't put that many resources onto him. So, I don't know. And on C, Dallas just give up so much space and wait for their DPS to do things, but Atlanta's DPS are better because, like, you're on the Sigma. You can't be proactive into the Doomfist. If you try to walk up, the Doom punches you, you'll die. You will die. And so they have to constantly give space, and their DPS has to constantly try and do stuff, but Atlanta's DPS do things better. It's not a great strategy. You don't try to out-DPS the Atlanta Rain, it just won't work. So on Dallas's offense, they play Widow, Tracer, Sigma, Zen, Bap, and Atlanta plays Sojourn, Tracer, Doom, Bap, Brig, and there's not a lot to say. It's not great. Dallas had one game plan. It was walk into the alleyway. And it never worked. And then the one time it might have worked because I had a Flux that could take the dive and like lift them up. They like tried to bait it and they didn't happen. And instead of continuing, they went and rotated and tried to go high ground to the subway station. But that's an awful strategy. We know the subway station is just bait. Because Hawk comes in from behind, gets some punches off. Hanbin doesn't get anything in a Flux. And if your only game plan is to get into the alleyway, which next step after that, question mark, it just, I don't know. The Doomfist has so many angles to dive onto the Sigma there. And Dallas just got stomped. And now watch Puncher Balter, final map. There's no, yeah, so. It's a 6-5 victory for Atlanta. Neither team can use defense here. Just no defense being had. Atlanta rolled through here. They TP across the high ground, and they're playing Sojourn, Tracer, Sigma, Zen, Bap on the defense. Dallas on the defense. Atlanta's playing Sojourn, Tracer, Sigma, Bap, Brig. It's a pretty similar comps. The only difference being the Zen or the Brig. I do like the Brig a little bit more, I think. It just makes it easier to control the high ground. But anyway, Kai gets an immediate pick, and Dallas try to kite back to the server room. But Atlanta just don't say, no, you're not doing that, and they push up and they kill them. And then they keep going. They push onto the catwalk, and they don't let Dallas come back at all. It doesn't happen. And then Dallas don't get a good recontest. But they also don't set up on their B. So Atlanta just kills them on their B. So basically no pushes stop. They get shuttle control for free. And Atlanta are just rolling because you have Kai on the shuttle uncontested. So he kills like 3. And then they get to C. And Hanbin does stop them for a little bit by swapping to Ryan, but then he goes back to Sigma, and then suddenly Kai is free again on the Sojourn. And like Sparkle tries to stop him, but he just dies because Tracer and the Sojourn. Atlanta cap with 323. Just Atlanta giving Kai all the space in the world. And if there isn't, and if Kai has to do a little bit himself, he will kill the Tracer that's stopping him. It's just easy. And it's like, oh, well, Dallas probably just lose. Yeah, except they actually get a better time on this offense. They just roll even harder. You have them playing Genji now instead of the Tracer, and it works wonders because Sparkle on the Genji can stop Kai so much easily. Kai isn't as big as a factor on this defense, and Sparkle is going crazy because even if he's not stopping Kai, he will go to the backline. He will just kill the backline. So they roll A, they roll B, they roll C even. Sparkle getting both supports multiple times in multiple fights, and they just win. Huge stuff in Dallas. So then it's like, okay, so now we've got some stuff. I believe Dallas had 221, and then Atlanta had 2 minutes, right? Because you reduce it to 2. So Atlanta's offense, where they have 2 minutes, it's just the same thing. But the difference is instead of fumbling B like Dallas did on the defense, they actually set up in the shuttle, but they still lose that fight because eventually they have to stop the cart, and Kai is just killing them again. Because on the defense, Sparkle's having a much more difficult time stopping Kai on the Sojourn. And Venom, it's a sick play where he basically lives and like has to 1v1 Hanbin at the end. It's very cool. It only gives him a few extra meters. It doesn't really matter in the end, but it's very good and it was very hype. And Shadow Venom. So then it's turns for Dallas offense where they have to push it all the way to C, all the way past the like uphill corner on C, and they do a pretty good job because they get stopped on A a little bit. Because Kai is adapting, he's playing more in his team, so Sparkle can't really go on him as much, and he can't be shut down as easily. So a little bit of a crumble for Dallas there, and they kind of struggle to get through A a little bit, but they do make it through A based on alt usages and like have a window and stuff like that. And then they fight again, because they're in the shuttle and they still have some alts. So they didn't use all their alts, and there were some fights going on. Sparkle gets a blade and a rally, and they keep going, and they do make it through B. But then Atlanta make a key gameplay decision. Hawk switch over to Doomfist, and now he can dive right on top of the team because they're taking the close high ground, close fight, and they end up winning that fight because they're diving on top of a Sigma. It's very easy. But yeah, good adaptations from Atlanta. They analyzed why Kai was not getting as much value. They fixed that. It was closer. They decide that they go Doomfist onto the Sigma because they have the high ground then. It's great stuff. So Atlanta end up winning the map. Pretty good. Pretty solidly. So overview, Dallas still doesn't seem to have solid game plans. I'd say they look marginally better than they did against Shock, but that was mostly because they're not putting their players on characters that they don't normally play. I'd still like to see some Doha maybe. I don't know. I think that Edison and Gurrio both played pretty decently. I like Edison a bit more. But I don't know. Dallas as a team, not sure if there's actual improvement there. They're just playing better players in better positions. I don't know if it's a real improvement. And Atlanta looked better than they did yesterday. Venom for a full match looked really good. Really strong. And I really hope we see more in the future. And I think Kai might just be the best Sojourn in the league right now. He is so good. Even when... Oh, he's my player of the match, by the way. And even when like he isn't actually killing them, Dallas has to commit so many resources to stop him. Or like even try to shut him down. Even then, he can still kill 2 or 5 even while he's trying to get shut down. Like the fight where Dallas throw everything at him and he still kills 5 is crazy. Every resource was basically on to kill Kai. He got pile drived. He got Sparkle was on him. Everyone was on him. He still got 5. It's insane. There's just not much more to say. So that's gonna be it for me. It's a bit of a longer one. I maybe spent too long on Houston, Washington, but yeah, have a good one. And thank you so much for watching.